Hello world, my name is Leo and today we are reviewing / discussing Slay the Princess, developed and published by Black Tabby Games. Now, when I first picked it up, I wasn't sure how much I would get into the experience. I hadn't played very many horror games before this, and even if that wasn't a factor, it takes a lot for games to stand out and stick with me given how many I play. However, Slay the Princess seemed incredibly intriguing, and people wanted to see it, so I played it on the channel. To my great surprise, Slay the Princess surpassed my expectations in every way imaginable, with the visuals, narrative, writing, and voice acting giving me more than I ever could have asked for. More than that though, Slay the Princess scratched a very specific itch in my brain, with its themes begging for me to pick them apart and engage with them. For those who have been with my channel over the past year, you know that Rain World defined most of my 2024. But for my all-time favorite game of last year, my heart belongs to the princess. When it comes to the aesthetics of Slay the Princess, simplicity and complexity go hand in hand. Each stylized image is drawn carefully by hand, with extra depth added with a parallax effect if you move the mouse. There's some amazing line work here, and a surprising, sometimes gruesome amount of detail. This game is a horror game after all, and it leans very much into nightmarish imagery, both in the vein of body horror and psychological horror. This game certainly isn't for the faint of heart. To service this, the game goes for a very simple color palette, with the only colors being black, white, gray, brown, and most noticeably, red. Now, Slay the Princess isn't the only game that uses a minimalist color palette with red as the standout color. Anytime you see red in this game, it usually means someone is getting hurt, and it's meant to provoke feelings of pain, anger, and fear in the player. It's confronting, and it helps immerse the player in its themes. Adding to the immersion, the character designs all feel expressive and alive. The princess and her many forms are all meant to draw you in or terrify you, but at all times she feels like a real character with complex and relatable emotions. To round out the aesthetics, the music is just incredible. Each piece in the OST feels composed to perfectly match each scenario. The use of leitmotifs, the significance of instrumentation, especially when it comes to vocals, is all such a treat to listen to, and it all feels like it means something, which makes it the perfect pairing to the game's story.
As you step forward, the cabin explodes.
The story of Slay the Princess starts out on a path in the woods. A narrator tells you that at the end of the path is a cabin. In the basement of the cabin is a princess, and you're here to slay her. If you don't, it will be the end of the world. Right away, the game gives off somewhat meta vibes, similar to something like the Stanley Parable. You have the ability to ask the narrator a wide range of questions, and you're presented with a pretty wide range of choices when it comes to the ways in which you can go along with him or side with the princess. Slay the Princess is a visual novel, and so these choices and interactions, seeing how the story plays out, makes up the gameplay framework the player engages with. Now, I want to take a moment here and talk about the voice acting in this game. Slay the Princess only has two voice actors, Jonathan Sims and Nicole Goodnight, both primarily known for voicing in horror podcasts. Their main roles are for the narrator and the princess respectively, But there are actually a lot more characters than that, and they voice all of those characters as well. Without spoiling too much, the voice acting chops on display here are absolutely phenomenal. Not only do Jonathan and Nicole show off an incredible range of voices, making each character sound distinct, but they also give each voice so much emotion and depth. Every character sounds believable and real, and the sheer skill and talent shown here is some of the best in any game I've ever played.
I'm happy. I promise. We're both so happy here. You don't have to be upset.
This is awful.
Speaking of making things feel distinct, that's how each of the routes in the game feel as well. Each choice you make can take you down a wide variety of routes. A couple of them have similar themes and vibes, but during my Let's Play, I repeatedly said that most routes felt unique to the others. This, of course, encourages replayability, as you will have to play through the game multiple times to see all the routes, see every change, and hear every line of dialogue. And speaking of dialogue, the writing in this game is top notch. It constantly has an air of self-awareness to it. It's serious and poignant when it needs to be. It's funny when it needs to be. At all times, it is making you feel something. And it is done with such a level of believability that I was always immersed in this world and these characters. And before I forget, it's worth mentioning that the Pristine Cut editions all feel right at home here. The new routes, dialogue, quality of life features, the gallery, all of it feels like it could have been in the game from the start, and some of my favorite parts of Slay the Princess came from the Pristine Cut update. This is the best the game has ever been, and it's so incredibly worth it.
But it feels so bad. Like looking into it right now is going to be the end of everything. It's calling us. And not in a good way.
Can we actually do that? What would that even mean? Where would we go?
The last thing I want to talk about is how Slay the Princess handles and conveys its themes. Every time you start the game up, it greets you with this message. Whatever horrors you may find in these dark spaces, have heart and see them through. There are no premature endings. There are no wrong decisions. There are only fresh perspectives and new beginnings. This is a love story. That last line is important. Right from the get-go, the game wants you to know that no matter what happens, at its core, this story is about love. Now, a couple of years back, I reviewed a game called Haven, whose themes were also centered on love. In that review, I said that Haven's depiction of love felt genuine and sincere, and it was one of the best interpretations of the theme that I had ever seen. Coming back to Slay the Princess, the overall feeling of it is similar in some ways. The strength of the writing and characters make the themes of love, again, feel very genuine and sincere. However, this game takes a very different approach to Haven to its depiction of love. Here, beauty and brutality are shown in equal measure. Togetherness and conflict both have a place. It's a very real and very raw take on the subject, and each route shows it in different ways. However, love only accounts for half the themes that Slay the Princess tackles. The other theme that is extremely present here is perspective. How the world around us shapes our perspective, and how our perspective shapes the world in turn. How perspective can shape our concept of love. How perspective can shape what we see as true, and where we find meaning and purpose in our lives. Just like with love, these themes are handled with a deftness that few other games manage, and both these themes combined strike a balancing act that manages to do both themes justice. This game knows what it is and what it wants to say, and it commits to it. I had said at the top of this review that Slay the Princess scratched a very specific itch in my brain. It's an itch that is constantly fed with existential thoughts and philosophical musings. For me, these themes were a fascinating exercise. They were practically begging for me to pick them apart and analyze them, drawing on clues the game lays out, as well as my own knowledge and personal experience. And the best part is, the game perfectly allows for that, as well as other playstyles. Slay the Princess allows the player to engage with the themes on their terms, however much they like, while presenting its themes as both relatable and deeply complex. It's all nothing short of brilliant and beautiful.
You take the blade from the table. It'd be rather difficult to slay the princess and save the world without it.
Don't be a stranger. It's been so long since I've had any visitors. Please, come downstairs.
I'm very much aware that throughout this review, I haven't said anything negative about Slay the Princess. It's been nothing but constant praise. Now, I don't think any game is perfect, and there are a few flaws that I could nitpick. I'd said earlier that a couple of the routes felt a bit similar to each other. That could be considered a flaw. But there are so many routes, each with their own set of minor permutations based on your choices, that's basically up to personal preference. The ending sequence did start to feel a bit stale after my 4th or 5th playthrough, as I was starting to run out of endings and new dialogue, but again, that was after playing through the game 5 times in a row and still enjoying every second of it. Also, the new ending added in the Pristine cut is a bit anticlimactic. It doesn't result in anything substantially new compared to what the base game offered. However, it does stay true to the core of the characters and themes, and the rest of the update is so amazing that the ending feels like a blip in the grand scheme of things. And that's it. That's really all the flaws I can point out. I'm sure other people could point out more, and I know this game just won't be to some people's tastes, but it's all a matter of perspective. Just like this very review is my own perspective. I look back on my time with Slay the Princess as a high point, not only for the games I've played on the channel, but for my entire history of playing games, period. It easily earns a spot among my favorite games of all time, and I absolutely recommend it. Thank you so much for watching my review of Slay the Princess. I decided to try something new with this one, and I actually wrote a script for it. Previously, all of my other reviews have been unscripted. So yeah, I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but feel free to leave feedback in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about this new style, whether or not it's like substantially different from my other ones, and feel free to let me know what you thought about my thoughts on Slay the Princess and how they compare to your own thoughts. Like I said at the end of my Let's Play, this game is all about perspective, and I would love to hear your guys' perspectives. As for me and my stuff, there are Discord and Ko-Fi links in the description below if either of those interest you. We have a pretty chill community in the Discord, and for the Ko-Fi, each donation helps me get one step closer to achieving my goal of being able to do the channel full time. However, there is no pressure to support the channel in that way. Just being here and watching is support enough. My Blue Sky account is also in the description if you're interested in that, and yeah, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, ringing the bell, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye!